Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you, depending on where you are in the world, and a very warm welcome to our clients, partners, prospects, and friends to this last session on the second day of our June Summit. I'm really excited about today's short but certainly impactful session, and I'm sure you will leave feeling excited about the things to come and what you'll see here today. Before I hand over to Dana, our development team lead, I'd like to recap on a few points from yesterday, as well as some additional points from today. Yesterday, we saw Don and Andrew, our fearless leaders, deliver some exciting news regarding our in-person summit at the end of the next quarter, with two lucky individuals being gifted with airfare and accommodation to attend in person in Monterey. I certainly can't wait to meet some of you in person and also to meet the Extreme Impact team, as I've only ever met a handful out of Zoom environment, as it were. To be in with a chance to win is very simple. If you're here today, you're in the draw. And if you attended any of the sessions yesterday or the earlier session today, you're in the draw as well. The lucky winners will be announced at the end of this session, so make sure you stay tuned to the end to see if you are one of the lucky ones. Don and Andrew also mentioned globalization. And it's one of the reasons why we were here at 5 a.m. local time in Monterey, and again here at midday. It's because IntelliEvent are committed in being truly global and are continuing to expand the team across the continents to ensure we provide the most comprehensive platform for the industry with best practices from all around the world, and also to ensure that you, our users, have support when you need it, regardless of your time zone. We really are committed to providing the best possible service wherever you are. As I'm based in the UK and spearheading our globalization efforts, I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank all of our clients, partners, and prospects across Europe, the Middle East, Africa, Asia, and Australasia for all your support and trust. It's very much appreciated. Don and Andrew also spotlighted a few members of the team yesterday, and I'd like to echo that sentiment and give the entire team a huge thank you personally from me. Over the last 90 days, it's been all hands on deck, so thank you. And whilst I'm talking about the Extreme Impact team, whilst I agree that we're all very, very beautiful, we're not perfect. But hey, none of us are. But what we really do try and strive for is to provide all of you with the best possible service. And we really appreciate all of you for working with us and bearing with us. And really, when things get a bit tough, you will stand by us as we stand by you. At our last summit, our 007 themed event, you heard we had big plans for the next 90 days. Well, those 90 days have passed. So as you'll see, we've been really, really busy. Following on from focus groups, open discussions, feedback, and new clients coming on board, we have a range of features to show you. So without any further ado, I'd welcome and hand over to Dana Smith. Over to you, my friend.
Hey, thanks for the introduction and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining. So today I'm going to run through a list of roughly 32 items that we've done this quarter. The list is by no means comprehensive, but it's a list of basically easy to miss or impactful items that we've done and that we're excited to share. So I am going to go ahead and start my screen share to kick it off. So what I'm going to do to start walking through these items is kind of start with a little bit of a foundation on some of the first topics that we're going to go into, just to kind of define some things and show some configuration and setup areas. So we're starting in the product page here. As you can see, we're currently looking at a package. So the first thing I want to mention is bin. So bin location is something that's been around forever, but it's historically utilized on maybe one or two reports and the cons B or consolidated bin pull sheet. But there was only one value for the product. So something we've recently added is this down here, the bin locations tab, that gives you the option to put a bin location for each warehouse. And as you'll see quite a bit later in this presentation, we've added bin location to some new printing and some better ways to see that. Moving on from that, looking at the product page here, you'll see for packages a new price type dropdown. There are three values in here. So there's default, header only, and bubble up. And I'll get into what those mean in just a second. But at a kind of quick summary, default is your standard, the way packages have worked in the system. Header up, header only is pretty close, but with some minor modifications to restrict pricing of components. And bubble up is basically price inheritance for package headers. So the price of the components dictates the price of the package header. And we'll get into that in a sec, but basically, if you're interested in utilizing these functions, coming in here is going to be where you do that. And then finally on this page, I'm going to be talking quite a bit about suggestions in a minute. So I felt like it was important to come back and really point this out. If you go into the product and suggestions here, you can see this suggestions editor. You can add suggestions by searching here and hitting add. And once they've added, you can see, is the suggestion a package? Is the default for it to be pull sheet only? Is it required? Keep a special note of this. I'll be mentioning some kind of uniqueness revolving around this required checkbox later. So if you want to add suggestions to a product, this is where you will do it. Okay, so now that we've set up that kind of foundation, we're going to pop over to the product wizard. So this is the job level products page. We're going to talk about a few things on here. So you'll see that I've set up this job rather purposefully. The names of the sets are normal, header only, and bubble up. And these are the 3 types of packages that you can select from in that package pricing dropdown. The first one here is standard. So if you've used packages before, this is what you're familiar with. The header has a price that pulls in from the product master, depending on the price level on the job. And then you have components that largely do not have price. But if you have it set up so that you have an item with show price, then you can have an item with a price. And the important thing to note here is that when this prints on invoices, the package and the component will both be listed as items with prices. They are associated to each other in this job, so they do move as a unit and that type of thing. You know, quantities adjust as a unit. So it has all the benefits of packages, but you will have this separate price on this line item. Header only is very similar. The only difference with header only is that you can see the components have NA. So it is impossible to put a price on these components. My way to think about it is basically our standard package pricing model with a little bit of concrete port on it. So if you would like to basically remove the potential that somebody puts a price on a component item and you only ever want to bill for that header, then header only is probably the setting that you should be looking for. And finally, bubble up. This one's the most unique. So what bubble up does is it says the header itself does not have a price. So your headers will not come in with a predetermined price. The header price is the summation of your component pricing. So you can see here, I have an item for 160, 170, subtotals 320, 340. And because your package quantity is 1, that means your price is the sum of your component subtotal. So if I change the component pricing, it will automatically update the package header pricing. Now, in order to make this so that it doesn't double up, when you print this on an invoice, only the header will show a price. So to your client, it looks like you're using our default package pricing, where only the header gets a price. But to your internal staff, they'll be able to see where that price comes from. And this is important if you add optional components or remove components, or add components in using the custom package editor on the job. If those components have a price and if you want to adjust those prices, it automatically reflects in that package price, so you know that you're charging the right thing. So that is Bubble Up Package. Continuing on this page, you'll see on the far right side here, we have a new column for equipment status. This is something I'll get into a little bit more on the job page, but basically what this is it's a quick kind of at a glance summary of the packing status for each line item. So you can see open means that no items have been scanned. Then you have partly packed, some of them have been scanned out. You have an option for packed, then partly returned, some of them have been checked back in, and returned, all of them have been checked back in. This will be a column that can be custom removed using, the custom view. To take full advantage of this, it works best with scan by set so that you can distinguish between items and sets. But if you have items leaving from different warehouses or different days, they will act independently as to that status. Okay. Another one, if we pull up one of the package headers here, we're going to show you, basically, I like to think of it as maybe a half step towards bubble up package pricing. So what this is it gives you 4 packages. It gives you a margin, a suggested price, and an estimated cost. So what this is it looks at the components that are actually in the package on this job. So any optional, any removed components factored into this. And it'll give you the sum of the cost of the components and the sum of the price of the components. So as you can see here, this one default is $250 and $16, but it says that the suggested is $290 and the cost is $29. So at some point we made a modification to this package, and it looks like the price might be too low. Now that might be intentional. So that's just a data point you can use. And it also looks like maybe our cost is too low because the default cost on this package needs to be adjusted or has changed because of the additions or subtractions we've made to this package. And this will go ahead and tell you that. One more thing here, and possibly the most important thing, is we're going to be looking at recursive suggestions. So I mentioned suggestions earlier on the product master page. That's where this is going to come up. And you'll notice that I have an empty set here called suggestion. Maybe some evidence of something we're about to do. So to kind of quick highlight something that came out a few months ago, but maybe people didn't recognize or realize, I'm going to pop out my product search and summary, and you can see that we can expand or shrink that as desired. I'm going to search for a product that I've already searched for because I know it has suggestions, and I'm going to add it. And what we'll see is the suggestions box come up. Now, this isn't radically different from the suggestions box that used to pop up in that we can see that this product has 3 suggestions that it wants us to add. And I will go ahead and say, yeah, those look pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and add all 3 of those. And now we'll get it again. And this is the new thing, and this is the special sauce here. So instead of adding the suggestions for the first product and then calling it a day, leaving you to hit the green plus button to add any future suggestions, what it'll do is it'll add the 3 items that we added. It'll search those products for suggestions and display those. And so what we can see here is that the Shark DSP and the audio CD recorder both had suggestions of their own. And we can go ahead and check all of these and add them to the job as well. And what we'll see is that we have another suggestion because the 10 to 15 foot HDMI to DVI cable had a suggestion. So I think you can pretty quickly see what the use case is for this and what the kind of scenario we're building here is that if you've built out your suggestions thoroughly and accurately, you could come up with a scenario where, you pick between one of a few packages, add it, 5 suggestions, 10 more, 5 more, and all of a sudden, by the time these windows stop opening, you've added everything you need for the job, and you've got your whole quote built out. And it was all, you didn't have to remember any of it. You didn't have to, use any of your extensive industry knowledge because somebody else did that for you and put that in. And you just had to come through and pick the suggestions that you wanted. And there you go, whole job's done. There are some things that I'll mention about this. So first off is if you have a required suggestion, it will add automatically. So it doesn't come to this screen. It gets added behind this screen in the job, but it will then, if it has suggestions, it will bring those up again. So even the required items, even though you don't see them in this list, they can suggest their own suggestions. Another thing is that we've built in some logic to make it so that it isn't recursive. So if one thing suggests the same thing, it will stop kind of cycling. Yeah, so this is pretty powerful. And one final thing to note is that if you have comments, the suggestions will pop up the comments in between the recursive suggestion pop-ups. So we have not removed that functionality if that's something that you were interested in. It's also important to note that it will take advantage of availability things. So if you are not allowed to overbook, you will get those blockers and you'll need approval and the same process. So we haven't, shortcutted any security in that. But you can see good timing or luck, I guess, I stopped getting pop-ups. And that indicates the end of recursive suggestions. So with that, we are going to move on to the job page. So there are a few things that I want to mention here. First off is this pack status. So we saw a little bit of this on the product page, but if you hover over this, you can get a little bit more detail on what these mean. So what you can see is we have broadly packed, out, returned, and completed. So packed is scanned. You've scanned some items and you're still in that process. Packed all the way, you're done with that process, but the truck is still in the warehouse, still in the parking lot. Then you can mark a plan as out. That means truck is gone. So that might change some of your calculations. You can't throw anything late into the truck if it's marked out, but it also indicates, that the job is partly out or all the way out if all of your checkout plans have been marked out. Same thing on the way back. You can mark a plan as returned, meaning, truck is here. Even if you haven't started scanning it yet, it'd be important to know that the truck is on premise. And you could have, returned and then partially completed, meaning some have been scanned in, and fully completed when all items that were checked out have been returned. So just a quick at a glance to see your status of the job. And as with a lot of things, I would say that this is kind of a foundational thing here. So right now it only shows up on this page. But I think, because the logic has been built, adding it to more pages in the future is definitely something that we are interested in. So reports and things like that, I think you can expect to see this on some of those, and think it'll come up in future open discussions possibly. Moving down the page now. So we could take a look at discussion. If you've looked at the support portal, you'll see that this is strikingly familiar. We have the exact same logic in the support portal. What it allows you to do is put in a note and add it, and have that note be persistent with a date tag and a tag to who made it. That's so you can have a running log of notes that are static, that can't be modified. That's the key difference between the notes tab and this is, you can't have somebody going in and changing previous notes that have been put in. They are running and static. And I will talk about something tied to this. If we go over to system configurations, you'll see a new section here called notification triggers. We did talk about this briefly in an open discussion for those of you that attend those regularly. The notification triggers is also a kind of foundational thing that we're building out here. So you can see right now we only have one option. That's job discussion by office. That's the first one. It will not be the last, I guarantee you that. We have a few that we are looking to add in the short term, like job status, item added to maintenance, a few more like that. But you get the idea, or will in a second. So what this allows you to do is you select your triggering action, so job discussion, in this case tying to job discussion. And then you select your criteria, in this case, office. So you can say which office. So you could say only when a discussion is created for the corporate office, or also for Cincinnati, or all my offices. You put a name that shows up in this list so that you can find it easily in the future. You say who the email sends to, CC, BCC, what the subject is, what the body is. So it's basically, you can customize exactly what that says, what that looks like, who it goes to, all of that fun stuff. And then also the Google Hangouts integration is an option. That's something that we are actually just yesterday in the final stages of approval from Google. So that is something that will be out very, very shortly. And what that allows you to do is, instead of, or addition to sending an email, it will send to a Google Chat group. So if you want to set that up, you can set that up to work with a Google Chat integration. Okay, moving on from that, we go slightly farther down the page and we see links. So what links are is a place to put in external links. So you can write in a name that shows up here, and you can write in a URL that is the clickable link here. And if you hover over this, you can see that I've put the link to site survey search on Google, so that anybody who's on this job and is curious what the definition of site survey is can just click this and find out. And it will do some handy things like indicating if it's a Google link or some of the easily recognizable things. And yeah, if you click that, it'll open in a new tab and take you to that search. Pretty handy to store things, like Google Drive links that are relevant, or, websites of the venue, things like that. Okay, because we're already down in the bottom half of the page here, I'll start over here at the warn scan and lock scan. So those of you that have used client holds should find those terms familiar. So in the client holds, two of your options are warn scan and lock scan. Warn scan puts a banner and a pop-up. Lock scan prevents scanning on the job. And basically what this is it's the same functionality that's in the client hold, but moved to the job page for ease of use and accessibility. So if you put a hold on the client, it's going to affect every job that the client has. But let's say you just want to put a hold on this one job because somebody noticed something with the inventory, and they don't want to start scanning just yet. They want to do a quick double check of the products. They can come in here, quickly lock scan just for this job, check their inventory, come back, unlock it. So that's quickly accessible down here. And then the final thing that I'll talk about on the job page, again, we're going to cut over to the system configurations and take a look at job types. Yesterday, Andrew mentioned that there have been some changes to job types, and that it'd probably be worth reviewing again for anybody that hasn't looked at it in a while. And I agree, and that's what we'll do right now. So if you'll see on the job type, you have a name, sort order, status. You can set your defaults for all of the action dates here. You'll notice new is overhead, so you can have an overhead by job status that changes. You'll also notice coloring here, and the coloring is something that comes into play on the Gantt reports. We'll take a look at that a little bit later. And then the final thing on here is default time. And what that'll do is it will set a default time for actions 1 and 5 based on these values. So the two use cases that we have right now, we have a few companies that like to set a time kind of like what you see here, 419, 619, and they know internally as a company, 419 means nobody has set a time, because 419 is reasonably not a time that a client would say the job should start. So at a very quick glance, 419, they haven't set the time, we know what it is. Whereas, if you had a policy where you put midnight, maybe a job starts at midnight. So maybe that's not valid enough information, so they use something like 419 as a placeholder. The other one is, let's say, you have a job type, client pickup, and you always want the job to start at 8 a.m. And you always want it to end at 5 p.m. because that's when they're supposed to drop it back off. So in that case, depending on the job type, you've saved yourself the 2 clicks that you need to put in those times. It'll default for you. So that's kind of the 2 use cases on that. And we can go ahead and show this. You can see labor is our current. We'll switch to rental. We'll get an alert about the overhead percent. We'll go ahead and accept that. We saw our times, our names change, and we saw our times kick in. So that is that. From here, we're going to dive a little bit into operations land by going to our check-in page. Those of you familiar with the check-in page will notice that this looks quite a bit different. Both of the grids on this have been updated, optimized, refactored, and are generally a lot nicer. These are both our new style of grid. You can tell by the kind of visual layout of it. These are much faster. The way they process is better. This is part of a rewrite project that we're doing to some of the key pages. One of the next ones you can definitely expect is checkout page. So we're looking to really give these a once over and tune them up. We know that a lot of you guys are starting to get pretty busy in the next 3 months, and that really dialing in the performance of these pages is going to be something very helpful. Yeah, otherwise functionally, workflow is the same. We haven't changed anything that would need training. Scanning still the same. All this is still good. One thing I will point out as a new feature are these two buttons. So repack to another job is something that has existed. Repack to a new job is a new functionality. So in repack to another job, you take all the items that have already been scanned and you add them to an existing checkout plan. So you have to already have the job created. You have to have the checkout logistics plan created. You search for the logistics plan by job number, and you can, in one button click, take these scans, move them to that plan. Very handy if you know that you have a quick turn on some gear. You scan all that gear, repack to another job, add it to the checkout, put it on the outgoing truck, flip it around. Repack to a new job is a way of basically continuing to book gear that did not return. So let's say you have a deal with a client. They have some of your gear, they return half of it, the rest of it they want to put on a new invoice for the next week, the next month, what have you. So anything they didn't check in, repack to new job. What it'll do is it will make a copy of the job that you're on, add just the products that it needs to, carry over all of your scans to that new job so that all of these same barcodes stay out, all of the same products get the availability hit for the new job. You have the ability to close out and invoice this job while opening a brand new job with the remaining gear to track that remaining rental. So yeah, that is the new functionality. And then briefly, I'll talk to something on the checkout page. So we have a new system option called automatic overpack. And what the automatic overpack does is, well, right now I'll say what normal overpack does. So right now you have a job, you have some products on it, and you pick a brand new product that you do not have on this job, scan one of the barcodes for it, it shows up red, says this item is not booked on the job. You go to the compare report and it'll say, add to overpack. You can click it, add to overpack, done. What automatic overpack will do is it will take that product, notice that it is an overpack, and automatically add the overpack set, the overpack product, adjust the quantity correctly, and allow the scan to go through as something that is added to the job. And if you add an additional quantity, it'll increment the quantity. If you delete a scan, it'll take away and remove the line item if necessary. Now, just to show that we cater to all types of clients, in the same release, we've also included a security access level to completely prevent overpacking. So if you want to make overpacking much, much easier, you can turn on the system option to automatically overpack. And if you want to make overpacking completely impossible, you can turn on the option to completely block overpacking. And that segues perfectly into the security access level page. This is a page that you'll notice has also been updated to the new grid type. That allows us to do a few things like have a frozen left column over here, and some just general improvements to the functionality of the page. One thing Andrew Ayler mentioned yesterday is that we tend to add several security options every month. Probably 2 to 5 would be my guess on an average. And we've done that again through this quarter. So I'll briefly kind of highlight some of those. Some of the most important ones, management system options, you'll notice these 5 look very similar to each other with some key differences: setup, inventory, labor, operations, settings. And if you hover over, you can get a description of what it is, just like all the other ones. And we can see that what this says is it grants access to the setup areas, which we've defined as job, client, and financial, of the system options page. And so functionally what that does is it takes this page, which is your kind of system configuration page, which traditionally was one security level, so an all or none. And what that creates is a scenario where you might have an employee who deals in labor, who wants to add new talents. And the only way you can give him that access is to give them access to all of these settings. Some of these you might not want to give them access to, like security level, because then they could change their own security level. So what you can do now is say any of these 5 options can be toggled on or off on a per user level basis. So if you have people that just need labor or just need POs and operations or just inventory, you can toggle those independently. Going on to another fun one in here. In the Jobs tab, we have some new ones here for product lock price, product hide rate, product hide cost. So this, as it says, it prevents editing the price of any item on the product page. This one hides the price completely, so you can't see things like product pricing. This works for product costing. And then we have the same for labor rate and cost, and the same for delivery miscellaneous rate and cost. So a bunch of options in here. One thing I will say is that we are especially careful when we make security levels to include them in the release notes that we do. The release notes can be found always from this help icon, release notes, and you can see if you're in one of the new-ish versions, you will have a version number here. If you're in a slightly older version, it's just on the login page. But it is a running release notes for all of the 4.0 builds. So yeah, feel free to check that out whenever you want, and we do update that before any update. Okay, continuing on to other things in the system settings and configuration vein, I'm going to pull up the company profile. So eagle-eyed viewers or people that watched the first one this morning and got a hint might have noticed that everything I've been doing today has been in British pounds. And that's because the setting for this sales site is to use pounds. So this currency format is where you can go in to change that for your company. There is a ridiculous list because, as it turns out, some countries have multiple different formats depending on commas and periods and spaces and that type of thing. But should be pretty easy to find yours. It starts with the language and then the region, and then it shows you an example just so you know you're doing the right one. We also have some settings for date styling and things like that, which we'll show in a second when we go back to looking at reports. Moving on from that, but in a very, very similar vein, foreign currency. So foreign currency has the exact same dropdown now. So used to be just a name and an exchange rate, but now you have that exact same dropdown, so you can define the type of symbols that you want. You'll notice on the job page, if you're using a foreign currency, that the job totals stack, the foreign price column on Labor Wizard, Product Wizard, and Miscellaneous will use that symbol. And also invoices when printing for your client will use the correct currency symbol. So if you are using a foreign currency, pretty big improvement in that area. Segueing perfectly into printing as if it was planned. We're going to take a look at some of the printing improvements we've made. So first I want to kind of introduce custom printing, just to kind of set up a definition. So those of you that have been here for a while know that we have different grid types that historically were pretty fixed. So you were able to select from a small collection of pre-configured grid types, and that has completely changed in the last 2 years with the custom grid type. Traditionally, well, initially that was only for invoices, but what I'm going to talk about now is a pretty broad expansion of that. And what that looks like is the ability to, for products, labor, delivery, miscellaneous, to turn on and off different columns, and then to have some configuration options, just kind of template level. But what we have here is we have a new editor that's going to be rolling out very shortly. And this new editor is geared towards that custom printing style. So this is going to be your place to edit any of these custom documents. They have an improved workflow, improved visibility, better editing logic, and a cleaner UI over here. So you can see for invoices, it's that same view, but you can expand these. Kind of give you a lot of control over what your printing looks like. And you can also see the other ones that have custom types like this. So for example, one of the brand new ones, a pull sheet. So you can do your pull sheet and you can set your things. You can say whether you want the checkboxes on the left, just like we talked about earlier in this call. You can have it show bin, which is by warehouse, if you have that set up. So that'll be your bin here. You'll also notice purchase order. So you can set up your purchase order. Purchase order is one that has existed for a little while, but did not have an editor in the UI, so that had to be set up by support. No longer. Now you can do it from inside the system here. And the final one, this one's very new, is packing list. So the packing list now has a custom grid type, allowing you to pick between any of the columns here: quantity, part number, name, barcode, etc. Cool. Okay. So that's a wrap on printing. Now moving on to reporting. So we're going to pop back over and we're going to take a look at the weekly agenda. And what I will show you here is we've added some date names. So 6:30 Wednesday, that was a highly requested ad. We've also put forward and back buttons on the weeks here, so you can jump forward or backwards a week. And then also tying back into what we said earlier with the color coding. So you can see the color coding by job type, by job custom, which is the value on the job page, and then by job status. One thing I want to point out, because I think this is a feature that some people miss, is this job status. So in the system configurations, this job status has been here for 2 or 3 builds, I think. When you go in here, you can set the color for each job status in the system. You can see a little sample of what that's going to look like. And that not only affects the Gantt reports, which it does affect, it also affects this dropdown up here. So if you're in the jobs and you search for that, it will affect the coloring of that. So if you want to customize the coloring in that dropdown to be something more significant or meaningful to you, this is where you would go and do it. Okay, I'm going to pull up the user page and I'm going to introduce something that should be familiar if you've done anything in like Google Drive or any number of similar utilities online. And that is the integration of a program called SignalR. And what that does is it allows for a real-time live display of simultaneous editing. So to give a little bit of background on what that means. So I am looking at the user page here, and I am looking at my own record. A few things to point out. First off is because I have gone in here and made some changes, there's a little asterisk up here. And what that means is that the page is dirty. It has potentially unsaved changes. So if I tried to navigate away, it would say, "Are you sure?" Because it seems like you have something on this page that you might not have saved. Maybe that's intentional. Maybe it isn't. That's right. I did want to save it, so I'm going to cancel that and stay on this page. Another thing it'll let you do is I have open a incognito window in my other screen here, and I can type and I can see that come up right here. Obviously, my first name isn't Dev, it's obviously Demo, and I can change that from over here. And this pink indicates that somebody else is doing it. So in the other monitor, I'm logged in as Andrew Ayler. So I can see that somebody else is editing this while I'm looking at it. So that means on the job page, the chance that 2 people are editing and conflict and erase one another's work is non-existent. So as you do these edits, you'll see them on both pages. Gives you a lot more ability to kind of work collaboratively to see if anybody else is on your same page and kind of make sure that their changes are being made to yours, so you're seeing them live as they happen. This is an enhancement that is on several pages currently: Office, User, Venue, Vendor, I think Company Profile, a few others. We are, over the course of the next few months, quarters, we're going to be migrating that to every page in the system that has this type of editing functionality. So look for that. That'll be very cool. I also wanted to point out that we've made some enhancements to the change log on pages that have this functionality, and that will also be expanding to future pages that have that functionality. So what I wanted to point out here mostly is that you have this field, old value, new value, and they're grouped within a single edit. So you can see, if you had multiple edits in this, you could say, oh, admin made a change at 20:37, and then 8 minutes later somebody else made a change, and you can expand and collapse these to see all the changes within that change. So what changed when they hit save. Cool. Okay, moving on to reports. And yeah, see, I get this alert here telling me that something's unsaved. I don't really care, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to pull up a report here, not really any report in specific, but I want to show off a few things that we are going through while we make the same system-wide updates to reports. So first thing you'll notice, this is the new report format. You can tell by the numbers here that indicate pagination, which I'll go over in a second, but also a slightly different UI here. We can see the frozen column here with the select boxes scrollable here. We'll also notice the currency is correct as to the settings in the company profile. We'll also notice the dates and times right here are set to day first, then month, something to reflect that I am using settings other than the standard American settings. So if that's something you want to do, that is something that I am showing. And then also you can see that I've currently got it set up for 24-hour clock. So gone are the days of AM PM. In this, we can set this to 24. You could still have AM PM if you want, but that is a global enhancement. So pagination, this is something that I got some questions about this morning. So anybody who's double dipping, this is a bonus trivia factoid. So pagination is very similar to Google, where you search, there's a bunch of results, and then you have the option to go to page 2. This is the exact same thing. And so let's say you have this, you have a report like the inventory manager, 5,000 results. We don't want to see 5,000 because that would make the grid load slower, and maybe only the first 5 are relevant. So what we do is we can terminate it and say only show the first 100. That'll speed up the way that it runs because it's only looking for the first 100. It'll speed up the way that it loads because your computer's only loading 100 at a time to display on the UI. And it'll give you the option to say go to next, go to next, go to next. So you can flip between those if you want to keep kind of digging into the details. Now, just because a report is pagination ready doesn't mean that we are going to be adding pagination to all of them, because we understand the need in some cases to see the entire data set kind of regardless of how big it is. So that is something to keep in mind. It is pagination ready, not pagination required. The other thing is, even if a page has pagination, if you hit the export to Excel, it will pull the full list to kick out to Excel. So not to fear if you're trying to export an entire list of your inventory and there's only 50 showing on the first page. The Excel export will export the full list. Perfect. Okay, and then going over to another report, I'm going to pull up the time clock report. So the time clock report is part of the IntelliTime module, which, as you can see up here, is our time clocking. Those of you that have used it before will notice the improvements of adding talent and task. So when you do your clock in or clock out, you can assign a talent or task just to give you a little bit more, information on that record. You can also see in the add with time, talent and task, maintaining a standard. And in the quick add, which is a brand new function, instead of, let's say I wanted to record that Brock was here from 8 to 5 yesterday because he forgot to clock in. Instead of me having to go in, create a clock in, then create a separate clock out, I can open this quick add, 8 to 5, boom, put it in one click. This is a function available only to admin users of the IntelliTime module as dictated by a security level called IntelliTime Edit. And then you will also notice, because we have the ability to add labor, talent, and task, we have also added the push to actual labor button. So the labor actual is the way to record kind of actual costing and time for labor. You can get to it from the labor page using the labor actual button, and then it reports out to the labor versus actual variance report in the labor section. And this gives you a very handy way to go from time clocking to job costing using the push to actual labor tool. And saying finally for the 15th time, I think that is finally the last thing on my list. And that should have been the 32 plus the bonus factoid. So yeah, Allie, back to you.
Thanks, Dana. Wow. It's the second time I'm seeing it for today, but I'm still impressed and I'm still very happy with, you know, all the progress that we've made. And I hope you guys, we've sat here and, you know, I've seen some of the comments that are coming in, you know, you really appreciating some of the efforts. I saw Shane, I think, double fisting or air pumping the security settings, which is great. So we know that's good. So yeah, you can see that we've been really busy over the last 90 days. And as Dana mentioned, some of the grid improvements and screen improvements that we are making, in addition to the signal, will continue to roll out in the platform over the coming quarter and beyond. And as I mentioned, we are really trying our very best to make sure that we provide the most comprehensive product for the industry that we are trying to all exist in currently. So I hope you will appreciated that. I'll now hand over to Don and Andrew. I was going to say the Chuckle Brothers because they've been having a bit of a giggle back there backstage, but over to you guys, and let's have some prize drawing. So I will unmute you and we will go from there. So ask to unmute.
Mute, perfect.
There we go. And let me just remove our spotlight and get
All right. Sound check. Allie, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can. Perfect.
Great job, Allie, Dana, everybody participating. How do you like seeing your ideas come to life in the software? So thank you for the teamwork. We believe in teamwork makes the dream work. However, before we pull the lucky winners, why don't you describe because we don't want any conspiracy theory that this thing was rigged. This is a legitimate drawing, right?
In this day and era, it is always questionable, these elections.
So Abraham Lincoln. Wait a minute. No.
Okay, this bag is full.
Wait, let's not. Wait, hold on.
But everyone's names. Everyone's names are in here. Okay. Right.
But before we pull this, I think Dana did an admirable job. Allie, you did too, but this is kind of a trivia thing. Dana, when's your birthday? Exact date.
It's going to be muted.
Allie, let him talk.
There we go. Hey, I can talk again. It was Sunday, 3 days ago.
So what, do you know what's relevant, most relevant? It's your birthday. When's your daughter's birthday?
June 27th.
June 27th. Awesome. So your daughter's not.
That's cool.
A year ago today, Andrew showed me pictures that come up on your phone. iPhone's so smart, about him being in the bikini, stand-up paddleboarding with his daughter, catching a fish, nice rock cod. We probably ate it that night. It was amazing. But I think before we pick the winners, we should probably sing a little song for Dana.
Oh, God, no.
Here we go. I don't know. Everybody else is muted. So, Andrew, you got to do it.
Yeah, you take it away. We can all do it mentally.
Birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Dana. Happy birthday to you. Woo! All right, Dana, great job.
See what we make you suffer through?
Give that, Allie, give him that fake hand clap. All right, just kidding. So, what is it? Now, let's disclaimer this, all right? This is not, this is, work with us on the flights, man. There's some people in frickin' Germany in this thing, and it's going to be, whoa.
Yeah, so we're going to do two different drawings. The first one, you will get you and one guest. You will be sharing a hotel, so preferably somebody that you prefer to sleep in the same room with, and airfare accommodations for our event at the end of September that we're obviously very excited about, and more detail is going to come out on that. We'll draw two people, but we're going to do them separately. He's going to draw one, then I'm going to draw one, so there's no cheating. If you don't get drawn, don't worry, you can still come. You will get one of these bags for free for showing up. So there's not all is lost. Okay, here we go.
You want to go first? You
go first. This one.
Hold on. Hold on. All right. Look at this.
Oh,
Sarah Beeman.
Sarah Beeman. That
That's
is
awesome. Woohoo!
From Milwaukee, Southwest flies from Milwaukee.
Woo!
Okay,
All right.
hold the bag.
Oh,
No.
gosh. Oh, no, sorry. Let's give away 4.
All right, here we go. I'm not gonna look.
Oh,
I'll probably get in trouble for pulling you, Christoph, in Germany.
oh,
Hold on.
hold on.
All right, we've got one, and it is Michael Crawford.
Woo!
CMI, Rochester, New York.
Hey, now, for all those that have attended and participated, we're going to try and scrape together some budget money to try and maybe do some more of this. But right now,
Mike said,
woo, Michael. But no, thanks. We want everybody to be here. We're going to try and figure out ways to make it as cost effective as possible. We always do, working with local folks here, working with you all, and but super stoked that everybody was available to participate in this and give us all the feedback and see this stuff come to life. I don't know if you want to highlight anything going on.
Yeah, a couple of things while we still got you. Hopefully you don't all kick off all at the same time. We still have a bunch of open discussions coming. We are going to be announcing more information on our workflow focus groups for our event. There will be some pre-meetings for that. So look for that. We'd like everyone to stay engaged. And that's really going to help tie a lot of the system together. So, but really, other than that, I think we're going to let you guys get back to your day. We are extremely excited to have so many people here, and we're excited about the where the software's at right now and where it's going. So,
Love you all.
we will see you in September, I hope, if not sooner. Thanks all.